Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Pennsylvania State Representative Jared Solomon calls himself a reformer. He's proposed a ban on lawmakers getting gifts. He wants the Philly Sheriff's Office eliminated, and he's trying to get term limits on congressional representatives. He also claims that you can get a great meal in Northeast Philly for half of what it costs in Center City. It's Wednesday, April 23rd. I'm Trinae Nuri. We're talking Philly politics. People call you the reformer. What do you think about that?
I hope they do. I think that if we are going to rebuild our brand as Democrats, and I'm a proud Democrat, we need to really believe in reforming our institutions. When President Biden passed the infrastructure bill and communities were told that infrastructure was coming, new, bold initiatives were coming, and 4 years later, their communities haven't seen any changes. We were promised EV stations all across our nation, and they're not seen. In my neighborhood, just to bring it back locally, when you have a ribbon cutting and you promise a community a playground, and 3, 4, 5 years later, there's no playground. What does that do? That decreases the belief in our institutions. It increases distrust. And what did we see in this past election? We saw people who don't trust us to do the job. The way to build back that trust is to say we are going to push the reforms necessary to build back public trust and deliver on the issues that people live and breathe in their communities. That's what I've done in Northeast Philadelphia. I think the reason I've gotten reelected is because on economic development, bringing jobs and opportunity to my neighborhood, reducing crime, infrastructure development, I've delivered. That's what people want. And the way to get at that is reforming institutions.
Is that why you want to reform the Philadelphia Sheriff's Office, or at least remove Sheriff Roosevelt Boulevard from office? And to those who haven't been following the controversies in the Sheriff's Office in recent years, there's been major failures in the office's 2 main functions: executing sheriff sales of vacant properties and providing adequate security in the courts.
This office is a mess, and it did not just start. It's not personal at all with the sheriff. This has been 30 or 40 years. If you look at what's going on right now, one issue is that the sheriff's office is not timely delivering sheriff's deeds, at sometimes taking a year. So what does that mean? For people on the ground, you have a blighted property that's been sold through a sheriff's sale, but there hasn't been an accompanying deed. That property is now sitting in your community. And we could go around in every community across the city of Philadelphia, and I can point to blight and say this is because of incompetence and corruption in the city. Going back to what do people want? Tangible improvements in their neighborhood. They're not getting it because government's not delivering. That's why we have to reform the office, because we need to deliver for people.
If you're calling to eliminate that, what happens to that process when there's deeds, or the process of deeds? What would happen if there is no official sheriff's office?
It would purely be a ministerial function, right? The mayor could appoint a bureaucrat. They're really, really competent, highly functioning bureaucrats throughout our city who could turn that office around. And that's what would happen. It really is, in this kind of quasi-judicial role, it requires someone that is able to administer the office. It's not about politics. It's not about doling out favors. It's about delivering. It's about delivering each and every day. And in this case, removing blight from our communities or securing the safety of folks within the court system, making sure that as a litigant, as an attorney, as a judge, as an administrator, when I go in that courtroom, which can be really very challenging, emotionally tolling, that I know that I'm going to be safe in that courtroom. A really highly competent administrator could do that.
Okay, with that, why are you taking on the issue of gift giving for lawmakers? Is it common? Is it happening a lot? And like, what are lawmakers getting? Cars, homes, money, tickets to the Super Bowl?
So here's what I would say. In the state of Pennsylvania right now, someone could give me a $1 million vacation home, and it's perfectly legal. I need to disclose it, but I can legally take a $1 million vacation home.
Can you explain to me or voters, like, why would I care that you had a $1 million home?
Because it's influence on the process. The average citizen has agency, but it's limited in petitioning your government, creating change on issues that matter. The issues that I've just been talking about, economic development in zip codes that need it, ensuring that we have jobs in neighborhoods that jobs are scarce, the tangible improvements. Individuals, because they're working, raising their family, they're limited in petitioning government, having agency to control those issues. Now, if you have a lobbyist or a team of lobbyists, which a lot of special interests do, now your quotient, your agency is through the roof because you have access. And how are you getting access? You're getting access through dollars. Campaign finance is one piece of it. We haven't talked about that. But peddling influence in the legislature is another. And we should not have an environment where it is acceptable to give large gifts, where there is an expectation that that legislature is going to act as a result of those gifts. Are my colleagues doing it? No, I don't think so. Even more reason, let's prohibit it. If no one's doing it, which I don't believe any reps or senators are, let's just make an across-the-board ban prohibiting gifts. My bill is $50 or more, but we could work out something reasonable. At the same time, I think I'm being reasonable in saying there are some things that legislators should be able to do. You should be able to have a bottle of water or go out to dinner, build relationships. If a nonprofit gives you coats or food as a donation to your community, you should be able to take it to ensure that your community has that. There are exemptions to this policy, but critical to it is sending a message to the public that we are doing whatever we can to hold us accountable.
How would your colleagues respond to this? Because this idea or this proposal has been tried numerous times, like 37 times. Would this fly in Harrisburg?
I think so. I'm optimistic that this will happen because we've made a more balanced approach. The gift ban, for instance, during the Wolf administration. no, you weren't. If a member of his administration came to my office, they wouldn't even be able to take a bottle of water. That doesn't make sense. It's not keeping with just how we interact with one another. If you go out to dinner with some colleagues, is that going to really change your vote? I don't think so. So I think that the changes we've made to do a reset here, to really reframe it as the work that we do in the legislature, at the same time sending a message to the public that we have to do better, I think this strikes the right balance.
I want to stick to this anti-corruption theme here.
Please, we can talk about this all day.
Okay. Well, I got a limit, but speaking on limits, you're calling for term limits on congressional representatives. Why?
Yes. I think in life, it's really hard to reinvent yourself. Some people do it. Take it out of the context of politics. Take it as a doctor or a lawyer or entertainer. After you've done something for 20, 30 years.
You get typecast.
Yeah, exactly. There are not many people like Cher or Madonna who constantly reinvent. It's extremely difficult. And it actually, it requires a relentless pursuit of the new. And that's hard. It's really hard. And so when you get comfortable, and there are people like that don't, because they're always driving. But when you get comfortable and you think, oh man, I don't want to go to that civic meeting. It's 7:00. It's going to be a hot zoning issue. I could be there till 8:39. I don't want to go to the civic meeting. Sure, but that means that the freshness of approach is waning a bit. And this is simply to establish reasonable left and right limits to say at a certain point in your career, you're just acknowledging we need an injection of fresh energy into the process.
But don't you think you could, I don't know, take a vacation and refresh yourself and, bring new ideas to the table? Like, I think having experience in your field is really valuable.
100% agree. And you need to gain that institutional experience to be effective. And it's hard to figure out, well, what is the right number of years? I don't know that I have a perfect answer to that. And
can you tell me what you think is?
Well, that in the bill, that's why we called for a constitutional convention so that members could weigh in on what they think the number is. Yes, you can always get refreshed, go back, do bigger and better things. And a lot of people say, well, the voters decide. I would say, though, given our voter turnout, I don't know that that's I don't buy the argument when we have primaries, especially judicial primaries in some parts of the city being decided by 10, 12, 15% of the voting public. I'm not sure that the electorate's really weighing in on those particular elected officials. So this is a way, much like recall, to inject a reframing, a new way of looking at the system. And if there are younger people out there, we want to get you involved. We want to get you into the system because the system needs younger, bolder folks that can do really good things.
You've been in the State House since 2016. You beat out an incumbent who was there in your seat for 42 years. So how did that happen?
It was a natural extension of the work that I was already doing. I really feel that government's best when we're doing things together. And that's what I did in my community group. I tried to flip the script on a community organization and make it really focused on tangible change, business corridor development, community engagement through a neighborhood basketball program, a community garden, things that people feel and see and can believe in. And once I did that and sort of had maxed out, one of the reasons I felt like I maxed out is I wasn't driving resources back to my community in a big way. And I saw the position of state rep as a way to do that. We could drive resources, reframe and rework and reimagine the community through using the power of state government to do that work.
Back in 2019, you were pretty upset that an indicted councilman, Bobby Heenan, was on the Democratic primary ballot. So you proposed a state law that would give voters the right to remove an elected official from office. What happened with the original proposal?
I was upset. I just want to kind of take a step back. Why was I upset? Why do I get so upset about incompetence, corruption in Philly and throughout the state, and the importance of demanding institutional reform? It's because really my upbringing. I was lucky enough to I grew up above my great-grandparents' butcher shop, single mom, but I was lucky to have like a stable, not only stability through my mom, but also extended family. I had a support network. When I go to the Spruance School, which is a few blocks from where I live, I don't see that for a lot of the kids that are trying to be the future leaders, our next generation in Northeast Philly, beyond. I see kids that go home, not to a mom like I had, not to great-grandparents and grandparents like I had. I see them looking for mentorship, and they don't have it. And so they're looking to their left or right, and they're seeing 10 or 12-year-olds who really don't know about life, don't know how to mentor them. And then I see the system that surrounds them. And I see a system that is broken, that doesn't have leadership and a vision, that's not trying to get those kids the opportunities they deserve. What did they do wrong? They just, because they were born in the wrong zip code? They don't deserve the same opportunities? And then I see people who are corrupt, who have their eye on doling out favors, threats, and intimidation, and they don't care about those kids. That pisses me off. We have to do better. And that's why I think we need to, as a party, as a city, be solely focused on institutional reform. Because if you want to get better outcomes for those kids at the Spruance School and beyond, you need to reform the institutions that are driving change. And so what I proposed is a recall initiative. And I don't think it's just that. I think you need a whole grouping of initiatives that get to how reforming the districts in which we run, how we take and spend campaign dollars, and then the institutions in which we sit once we're elected. And this basically says, when a politician is not living up to the public trust, we need tools. We need tools to ensure that they're removed. And this would set a healthy number of signatures that would be required to trigger a recall election. And then through that recall election, voters would be able to say, look, we think this particular politician did not live up to the public trust. We need to move on as a community, or not. How was it received? Not well. It's really hard, and I understand. I disagree, but I understand the position of some of my colleagues. It is hard to reform government because you're reforming the institution in which you sit. That's hard. It's hard work. Other states have done, though, this recall, have this recall provision. Other states have adopted a lot of the campaign finance reform and other initiatives that I'm so passionate about.
More with State Representative Jared Solomon after this break. Mother's Day is coming up, so to celebrate and honor her, gift her with something special, like an Aura digital picture frame. My mom lives in a different time zone, so when she comes to visit us in Philly, we take lots of pictures. I love the one where we're all squeezed on a couch watching Sunday Night Football. Aura Frames was named the best digital photo frame by Wirecutter, and it was featured in 495 gift guides last year. So the next time you need to call your mom, you can also send her a picture of your son at his lacrosse game right from your phone. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver Mat frame. That's AURA frames.com. Promo code CityCast. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
What sort of promises have you made to yourself this year? Getting in better shape, eating healthier, saving more money, traveling somewhere new? What about discovering a new culture by learning a new language? With Babbel, you can do that in just a few weeks. I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast, and I've been learning Spanish with Babbel. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in new languages, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. The Spanish I learned on Babbel really helped me on a recent trip to Mexico City, ordering in restaurants, shopping at the textile market, cheering on at the Lucha Libre, and I've been keeping it up since I got home. You're a podcast listener. I know that because you're listening here. I bet you'll love Babbel's new podcasts. On Eavesdrop in Espanol, which I listen to, you get to listen to a real conversation, then have the teacher host explain back to you. Then you listen again and catch everything. And you can even read along in the transcript. It's a really fun and effective way to learn. Let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting CityCast listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
You mentioned this word community. Your community is the Northeast. There was the plane crash in the Northeast. How is the community doing now?
It's interesting. It's kind of going from carnage and devastation to confidence and rebuilding. I was there on January 31st when those initial tragic moments when plane crashed onto Cottman Avenue. And you saw really a community that had been hurt. There was fire and debris all around me. The streets had been cleared. They were vacant. And what I did see, though, right away is the power of our first responders, police, EMS, all flooding the area, making sure that we're safe. And then almost immediately, I would say within 24 hours, we saw the power of Northeast Philly. People coming together, banding together, even people who had just lost their homes, bringing lunch, saying thank you to first responders. And then a community that really is defined by our working class roots, a community of helpers, nurses, construction workers, school teachers. Our whole life in Northeast Philly and my neighborhood is about helping others. But now we were able to turn inward and put all that energy to helping our neighborhood. And you've seen that each and every day as neighbors are helping neighbors rebuild our community.
Do you feel like the Northeast sometimes doesn't get a lot of attention like some of the other neighborhoods in Philly?
That's why a lot of us have a chip on our shoulder, a healthy chip on our shoulder. Sure, that's Northeast Philly goes back and forth from thinking that we are part of the city to pushing the rest of the city away. And it's interesting because even the new immigrant community who come to Northeast almost, I don't know if it's in the water or what happens, but they almost get that same chip on their shoulder right away. So what I've been trying to do is bridge the divide between old Northeast Philly and new Northeast Philly. And the way I've done that, just one quick example, is through my community hub. My community hub is called the Northeast Hub. My grandfather used to complain that all services are located in other parts of the city. So I located services. We have a housing partner, a mental health partner, my office, an Afghan women's group, all together serving the neighborhood. So that resident who's been living in the neighborhood 40 or 50 years now gets services right in Northeast Philadelphia. They don't have to go anywhere. There's a housing issue. We also have a food pantry, food security issues. There's a food issue. Boom, couple feet away. And that new immigrant, we basically say, if you're new to Northeast Philly, we're rolling out the red carpet. We're doing it for both old and new resident alike. And that really creates moments that can bring the neighborhood together.
Mayor Sherrell Parker has like a similar initiative where it's like putting like mini city halls in your community, but that gives people access to services. You don't have to go downtown necessarily. But then I feel like in some ways it keeps everyone in their neighborhood. So how can you convince someone from South Philly to go to Northeast and convince someone from Northeast to go to Fishtown?
The restaurants. People will travel to eat. I think that is a rule that everyone lives by. For people in Fishtown and Northern Liberties, they want the new restaurant that no one's ever heard of. And we have a ton of those. So if you go along Castor Avenue, Portuguese, Brazilian, Indian, some of the best cuisine in the city, reflecting the diversity of the neighborhood along my corridor. And it's probably half the price point that you'll see in Center City, Philadelphia. So you can come, enjoy a great meal, be exposed to the most diverse community in the city. And now what we need to do, and we're about to begin on a Castor Avenue revitalization project, a Cottman Avenue revitalization project, is we need our corridors to look the part. The lighting, the streetscape, greening, all of that. Because if you go out to eat, you want to be able to do something after that. You want to enjoy the experience. And we need to bring more of that experience to our corridors.
And then you have to get there. So the big question, are we ever going to get that subway system on Roosevelt Boulevard?
It's only been talked about for 100 years.
Yeah, I mean.
So it's just not that long. But think about it, Cottman Avenue, the iconic Cottman Castor corridors are going to be revitalized. All in, we're probably talking $40 million.
When are we going to see that?
Cottman's going to start first. We should begin that in the next year or so. And then in a few years, Castor. Okay, so we have two corridors, iconic section of Northeast Philadelphia, actually an entry point where many people see Northeast Philly for the first time, redefined, revitalized. Okay, well, your question is, how do you get there? Because that's critical. We are kind of landlocked in Northeast Philadelphia. If you were to go from my house, take the 58 to the L, you're talking, because buses are usually delayed, you could be talking 45 minutes to over an hour. Completely unacceptable to get to work, to get to your healthcare appointment. Or how about if you're trying to go to school somewhere outside of Northeast Philadelphia, pursue higher ed, whatever it is. This project is gaining real momentum. What other project, when this was polled during the mayor's race, has over 70% approval? It's the Roosevelt Boulevard subway, which would connect our friends in Bucks County all the way into Center City. Northeast Philly does its best work when we are connected. Think of the main moments we've connected to Coney Palmyra Bridge. At one point, the Roosevelt Boulevard, creating the Roosevelt Boulevard. When we had big transformational infrastructure projects, we've been able to create a new chapter in the history of Northeast Philly. I think we can do this with the Northeast Philly subway, Roosevelt Boulevard subway. So now Roosevelt Boulevard subway connects us to my neighborhood in Northeast Philly. You get to experience the Kester-Cotman corridors in this whole effort to reframe and rework Northeast Philadelphia.
But funding for SEPTA is like such an issue. Like, what are you doing? What are you saying in Harrisburg to get this money to our transit agency?
I think when I've done a lot of these town halls about the subway, and people respond, I think, so positively because they want us in the city to do something big, really big and transformational. We see other cities do it. We see cities like Denver and LA and New York do this. And people say, well, why can't it be here, right in our city, right in Philly? We can. And that's really what it is, a challenge to all citizens of Philly saying, let's do this together. And in a way, it's the perfect moment to challenge SEPTA and the region to do something big. When you're reworking, you're reframing what the SEPTA vision is, not only today, not only in a year, but 10 or 15 years down in the future. The immediate needs are stark, and I believe there's an opportunity through skill games, legalizing recreational use, a combination of the two, to drive the resources to SEPTA to ensure that they get the money they need to maintain services, no cuts.
So you say these funds could come from legalizing and taxing recreational cannabis and skill games, which are those machines that you find in gas stations, bars. Like, where are we with this? Like, do you feel like your colleagues are on board with that idea, with those funding measures?
I think that we have to pursue dedicated funding. And our colleagues on the other side of the aisle understand the economic might that our region has. In addition, every dollar that we spend to push transit funding is $5 towards economic development. 1 to 5. That is a really good investment for our region. The people that ride the L, including me, and I'm starting my daughter early. She's 2.5. So little Charlotte is now getting on the L. She had her first L ride, her first bus ride. This is the way we power our region, our state. The people that ride the L and the bus system, they're your workers. They're going to your schools. They're occupying your healthcare institutions. We power our region and our Commonwealth. So we have to, working with our friends in the Senate, Republican Senate, we have to find a way forward. I think everyone knows that. We just need to get the right mix of funds to get it done.
What's keeping you up at night?
Yeah, I mean, it's reform. It's making sure that we as a party and as a city and as a state do the necessary reforms to create the change we need. And it needs to be clear that it's not simply an academic exercise, right? We're not talking about reform or corruption as a professor at Penn would talk about it. We're talking about these issues because they deliver, it will ensure that we're delivering for neighborhoods. When I was talking about corruption that you just brought up in 2019, I remember I was going into a diner and the guy said to me, Jared, I saw what you just said about corruption. He said to me, well, why are you surprised? It's Philly. And that so saddened me. Yes, he's right. It's Philly, but we can do better in our city if we demand more. And if we have a responsive government that delivers, then people will begin to feel better about their city. It will build that important community pride that every neighborhood needs to thrive.
State Representative Jared Solomon, thank you for being on CityCast Philly today.
Thanks so much for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you enjoyed this episode about Philly politics, tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.